Entering the 2019-20 season, the Utah Jazz had one of the most exciting free agencies in recent memory. They signed veteran point guard Mike Conley to form a dynamic duo with Donovan Mitchell, and signed stretch forward Bojan Bogdanovic to round out their starting lineup. And as we all know, the Conley signing did not work out as well as many thought it would, as Conley struggled with injuries and couldn't find his shooting stroke all season. The Bogdanovic signing turned out to be the biggest splash of the season, as he revitalized Utah's offense and cemented himself as the team's second leading scorer behind Donovan Mitchell. However, amidst the NBA virus shutdown, he opted to have surgery on his right wrist, which made him unavailable for the NBA restart. The Jazz were able to make the playoffs as the 6th seed, and under a godlike performance from Donovan Mitchell, they were able to push the Denver Nuggets to 7 games, but ultimately blew a 3-1 lead. And with a disappointing playoff run in the books, how will the Utah Jazz tackle this offseason? Beginning with their salary cap, the Jazz do not have that much going for them, unless Conley opts out of his $34.5 million player option. And because of how much he declined this season, I think it's safe to say that he won't decline that option. With that in mind, the Jazz have virtually no cap space to sign any of the big free agents. Instead, they do have a lot of smaller guys coming off the books, such as Juwan Howard and Rajon Tucker, who they could potentially re-sign on minimum deals to fill out their roster. However, the big person that the Jazz definitely want to re-sign is Jordan Clarkson, who they acquired on a Christmas Eve deal this past season. He was absolutely phenomenal as the team's 6th man, averaging 15.6 points per game on 46.2, 36.6, and 78.5 shooting splits in the regular season, and elevated his game to 16.7 points on very similar shooting splits in the playoffs. And Utah will definitely need his services next season, given that they rank just 23rd in the league in regards to scoring off the bench, putting up just 33.6 points per game. And because Utah has his bird rights, they could definitely re-sign him despite being over the cap. I project him making anywhere between $13 to $16 million a year. The team is definitely in need of more defense on the perimeter, given how Jamal Murray torched them the whole series, and they definitely need a better backup big man given how poorly Ed Davis has played for them. With this in mind, the Jazz only have a few options given that they only can sign free agents with their mid-level exception, should Clarkson decide not to re-sign with the team. Some targets that I could see them chase are Justin Holiday, another good 3-and-D wing, the return of Jay Crowder, Derrick Jones Jr., Markieff Morris, or JaMychal Green. And while there are some rumors about them trading for bigger pieces such as Buddy Hield or Jeremy Grant, that's just something I don't see the Jazz doing given how they don't really have that many valuable trade assets aside from their draft pick and Gobert and Conley, who are both on massive and expiring contracts. And like I mentioned earlier, the Jazz also find themselves with the 23rd pick in the NBA draft, and while they won't get some of the quote-unquote top talent in the draft, there are a lot of potential role players still available. However, I see the Jazz targeting 2 guys, Vernon Carey Jr. and Josh Green. Starting with Carey Jr., by selecting him, the Jazz would be filling their need of a big off the bench. Standing at 6'10", 270 pounds, he showed in his time with Duke that he's a very solid scorer down low, and showed flashes of being able to hit the mid-range and potentially expand his range to the 3-point line. And while there may be concerns about him in regards to his size and shot blocking ability, I'm sure that over the course of his career that he'll be able to improve on these things, given that he's just 19 years old. And moving on to Josh Green, should he be available and the Jazz select him, they'd instantly fill out their need for more defense on the perimeter. He's an excellent defender, leading Arizona in steals per game, and on top of this, he is a great player in transition, and a better player than people give him credit for. He showed in his time with Arizona that he could run their offense with Nico Mannion out of the game. He'd be an instant impact player on any NBA team, and if he could improve his jumper, he could blossom into one of the league's best 3-and-D players. And finally, how do I predict that the Jazz will do next season? Well, if I'm being honest, I expect more of the same, with the team sliding anywhere between the 4th to the 7th seed. We have to remember that the Warriors are coming back at full strength next season potentially, so they'll probably be in the top 3 or top 4 in the Western Conference. The Jazz are a very solid team all around, however that lack of a second option that can truly create for himself outside of Donovan Mitchell is what's stopping them from going from a good to a great and championship contending team. And on top of this, there's still some questions about Rudy Gobert on the offensive end and what to do when his contract is up. He is eligible for a supermax contract by the season's end, but will the Jazz give that to him? Is he really worth 35% of the team's cap space? In my opinion, I don't think so. because of his offensive struggles. So with that, should the Jazz risk him walking for another team because they offer him the Supermax, or do they trade him for assets at the trade deadline? It's really a big question, and also consider that Donovan Mitchell could be signing his rookie extension, which could be worth up to $150 to $160 million a year as well. Look, with as good as they aren't going to win a championship anytime soon with how talented the rest of the league is. Unfortunately, they're kind of in that NBA hell where they're not good enough to tank entirely, but they also aren't good enough to compete for a championship, leading to around mid to late round picks in the draft. But hey, this is just my opinion, so let me know in the comments below how you think the Jazz are going to do next season and if they should be making any specific moves. Thank you very much for watching the video, and again, don't forget to like the video and subscribe with post notifications. I'd appreciate it very much. But with all that being said, remember this: since the team was established in 1974, the Utah Jazz have not won a single NBA championship. Let that sink in.